Welcome everyone to Magic with Class. I am Jeremy Class, and this is day 5 of Commander Legends spoilers. So let's just jump right in. First spoiler we're going to be talking about is a reprint. It's Mole Drifter, which was originally from Lore and Block. For 5 mana, 4 of anything, 1 blue, you get a 2/2 flyer. When it enters, you draw 2 cards, but it also has Evoke. Evoke allowed you to cast the creature, but it was sacrificed immediately. So you would still get the enters the battlefield effect, but you wouldn't get to keep the creature. However, there are ways around that. If you evoke a creature and then you're able to blink or flicker it, you will get the effect 2 times and you will be able to keep the creature on the battlefield. Mole Drifter is one of the better evoke creatures, and it's pretty good in a blink or a flicker deck. It actually depends on your deck, but usually I would say that Mole Drifter is better than a card like Divination. But if your deck needs to use a lot of sorceries or instants, there are probably still better cards than Divination, but you might want to use a sorcery and instant that can draw you cards. Mole Drifter is also an elemental, so it might fit into decks revolving around elementals, since elementals are in all 5 colors. So the next one is another free print, Ras Dragon Engine. Now, Ramos will not be in Commander Legends. This is a reprint, an etched foil reprint. One of the special commanders that you can get in collector's boosters, or also very rarely in the draft boosters. Ramos Dragon Engine was originally in the Dragon Tribal Commander deck, although this creature really doesn't support a full-on dragon theme. Instead, you could consider this a 5-color matters commander, even though it is an artifact, so I guess there's some synergy there, but I wouldn't run non-colored artifacts in the deck because it is a 4/4 flyer for 6, but whenever you cast a spell, you put +1/+1 counters on Ramos equal to the number of colors that spell has. So basically, if you cast a 5-color card while Ramos is on the battlefield, you will get 5 +1/+1 counters, which is pretty good. However, you probably won't be keeping the counters because you may remove 5 +1/+1 counters to add 10 mana to your mana pool, 2 of each color. So you play a 5-color, 5 mana card. Ramos activates. It gets 5 +1/+1 counters. You can immediately remove them. Now you've just generated 10 mana, 2 of each color, and then you could drop something like a Progenitus, which would activate Ramos again, putting 5 more +1/+1 counters, and you can remove them again to generate 10 more mana. So I would play Ramos in a deck that uses as many 5-color cards as possible to really help with his ability. Using cards that put counters, +1/+1 counters directly on Ramos will also work, such as increasing Savagery. Or you can cast cards that are 3 or 4 colors and still get some counters, although you will get counters a little slower. So overall, Ramos makes a very interesting commander. I think it only will get better in time as we get more and more cards that are 5 colors. Next, this is probably one of my favorite spoilers of the day. I think today's spoilers were a little weaker than yesterday's or the day before, but he is one of my favorite legendary creatures. He's in Madru colors. He's 1 red, 1 white, and 1 black for a total of 3. And for that, you get a legendary human wizard that's a 2/3. But you're not playing him for his power or his toughness. You're playing for his ability. But before we get into that, I will note that wizard does look kind of odd in these colors. Usually when you think of a wizard, you probably think blue. There are a bunch of wizards also in red, but I don't think I've seen a wizard in these combinations. It's also a human for human synergies, but there are a lot of different humans out there. So what's his effect? For 3 mana and a tap, 1 red, 1 white, and 1 black, you can sacrifice an enchantment. and return target enchantment card from your graveyard to the battlefield. That's really interesting. First of all, this is a Madru commander that focuses on enchantments, and I don't believe there is an enchantment focused commander in these colors. There's one in Bant, blue, white, green. There's Daxos, which is a white black enchantment matters commander, but I don't think there is an enchantment matters commander in these colors, so I believe this is the first one. So if you have a bunch of enchantments that you want to play in red, white, and black, then this is your guy. I like the fact that you can sacrifice any enchantment and get any enchantment from your graveyard straight into the battlefield. This does not return it to your hand, unlike a lot of cards we've seen spoiled in Commander Legends. This will get your enchantment straight onto the battlefield, regardless of the mana cost regardless of the card's mana cost. So you don't need specific mana costs. However, I recommend that you run many high converted mana cost enchantments in this type of deck, and I also recommend that you find a way to get those enchantments very quickly into the graveyard. Now, some enchantments that come to mind immediately are Eldrazi Conscription. That's an 8 mana enchantment aura. I think any enchantment that costs 6 or 7 or 8 mana in these colors you might want to consider, because you can just cheat them out really quickly. Another consideration is a lot of enchantments in black have negative effects, and you may want to get rid of them, but in black and red, it's very hard to get rid of your own enchantments. So by sacrificing those enchantments with detrimental abilities after you've gotten the most use out of them, you can get another enchantment straight from your graveyard. This also works with enchantments that have leave the battlefield or enter the battlefield effects. You can sacrifice a bunch of enchantments that have an effect when they go to the graveyard, and you can bring back a bunch of enchantments that have effects when they enter the battlefield. So overall, I would like to see an interesting Enchantment Matters commander deck based on this guy. I'm actually looking at some higher cost enchantments in these colors right now. There's actually not as many as I originally thought. There's one printed not that long ago, a 7 mana Rakdos enchantment that you automatically gets donated to the opponent. There's also a bunch of black enchantments that will have you lose the game. So if you want to not lose the game, you can sacrifice the enchantment to make sure that doesn't happen. So overall, this is probably my favorite card spoiled of the day, and I actually love the flavor text. Basically, he's saying, any wizard, anyone can create a fireball. It takes real art to generate what he's generating, which I guess is like a giant ball of energy. What that ball of energy really has to do with enchantments, well, I guess, enchantments are kind of ethereal and they're hard to physically interact with, so I guess he's a master of manipulating energy, which enchantments kind of are, right? They're like magical energy surrounding a place and kind of creating an effect. I hope to see more of this character, actually. Ghen, Arcanum Weaver. Don't know who he is. I don't believe he's in any story or lore that I know of. If I'm wrong, please leave a question in the comment. But I'm really hoping that some of these legendary creatures are just plans for future sets. I hope there are some plans to use some of these legendary creatures in upcoming sets within the next year or two, because I think that would be really cool if these were like previews of a character. Next is Kinzebel Courier. He's a Kithkin soldier. Kithkins are kind of like Magic's version of hobbits or halflings. And actually on Blogatog, someone keeps asking for new Kithkin, so I guess that person will be very excited to see Kinzebel Courier. Obviously, this is flavored from Lauren. Lauren was one of the only blocks where Kithkin actually showed up, and Kithkin were one of the major races that received support in the lore and block. They were mostly white. They were almost all white. I think a few of them dipped their toes into blue in Shadowmoor. But overall, this was a mono white kind of aggressive white weenie type tribe. So what do you get for 3 mana, 2 of anything, 1 white? You get 2/1, which isn't great, but this is a common, so you know. But when this enters the battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. So it can put a counter on itself to make him a 3/2 for 3. That's still lackluster. But you can also give the counter to another one of your creatures. That alone would not be enough to even discuss this card for as long as I am. But he does have an Encore ability for 3 mana. You can use Encore from your graveyard, and you get a copy of Kinzebel Courier for each opponent that you have. The copies gain haste, and all the copies that you get will get the enters the battlefield effect. So it's pretty good that you can spread out the +1/+1 counter. So if you have 3 opponents and you use the escape, I'm sorry, not escape, and you use the Encore ability for 3, you can distribute 3 +1/+1 counters to creatures that will not die at the end of turn. And also, what I find unusual about this card is that it is a white card that actually grants haste. So just the other day I was on Blog Talk myself. My Tumblr handle or tag, whatever you want to call it, is JJustin1379. And I asked, when are we going to receive another card, another white creature card that has haste? So far there's only one, that angel that pretty much had all the current keyword abilities. And Mark Wolfsradish said that, one card is not a precedent. White does not get haste, and white's not going to receive haste. But, here we are, a card with haste in white, even though you have to cast it from the graveyard basically to get that haste, and the card does die at end of turn. But still, that's an interesting color pie question. Why does this card get haste but other white creatures can't get haste? Is this a bend? Is this a break? Also, Awaken was a mechanic that gave haste to your lands and turned them into creatures, and Awaken was in blue and white, the weirdest color combination, not only for the animation of lands, but also to grant cards haste. And I know they only did it for memory issues, but it's still weird to see white haste sometimes. Next one is Vow of Torment. This is actually a reprint as well. It is part of a 5-color cycle. They all have Vow of in their name. This is the black one, Vow of Torment. This one costs 3, 2 of anything, 1 black for an enchantment aura. You can enchant creature, but you may want to enchant one of your own creatures, or you may want to enchant one of your opponent's creatures. So it gives the enchanted creature +2/+2 and menace. But whatever creature you decide to enchant with cannot attack you. So if you put it on one of your own creatures, it's just going to get the +2/+2 and menace. But if you put it on one of your opponent's creatures, it will get the +2/+2 and menace, but it won't be able to attack you. Your opponent won't be angry though, because he still will be able to attack other opponents with the new boost that you're giving him. So this is a political card. A lot of people like these Vow of cards. They were originally printed in one of the earlier Commander decks. I think they will one day do another cycle like this because they are pretty flexible and they do make good political cards. No one's going to be angry that you stopped their creature from attacking you if you gave them a boost and made it easier to attack their other opponents. So this is the black one in the cycle. +2/+2 and menace it's fine. I guess it's fine for 3 mana. And if you can always put it on one of your creatures.